Now, having talked about the issue of transforming, masquerading in as one of the antics, the major antics of the devil, right from the era of substance, which was the era of man in the Garden of Eden, to the era of shadow, which has to do with the fall of man, from Genesis 3 to the time Jesus Christ came, and now, which is the era of salvation. This antics is still in operation. In the days of the substance, before we go on, we are dealing on two antics of the devil. The antics of Satan masquerading as an angel of light, and the antics of Satan transforming as an angel of light. Masquerading came before transforming. The transforming antics only come into place after the church was born. But before the church was born, the masquerading has been. He said in the book of Ezekiel talked about Satan saying that he will be like the Most High. He wants to masquerade. He wants to put on, because I explain masquerading as putting on what you are not. Underneath what you put on, you remain the you, but you are just trying to show off, wearing a masquerade to cover your true identity. But underneath the masquerade, your true identity exists. That is what I meant by masquerading as an angel of light. But transforming, on the other hand, is deceiving yourself to mean what you are not, to the extent of losing your identity. You put all you can to see how you can lose your identity to be what you are not, in order to take souls out of what has brought them, who has brought them to light. The devil created a format whereby he looks like a light, but he cannot be the exact light, and he loses his identity in the process of being like a light, born not for the fact that he gave some marks that will still make him to come back to who he is after the mission is accomplished. So those marks are the turning points, the returning point, not turning point now, but the returning point in the transforming. Born not for those marks, he would have totally lost his identity, in a manner that his mission of going that far, his mission of going that far will be defeated. Now, let me explain this before I proceed. Okay, let me just put it this way. Before I go into this very particular explanation of transforming as an angel of light, which I've already started, if I go into it into details, it permits me to round up my explanation on the issue of Satan masquerading as an angel of light. Now, as I told us, it's just to wear marks, but his identity remains untainted. That is for masquerading. Satan just put on masks to cover himself, but his identity remains untainted. But in transforming, his identity is tainted, but there are returning points which he has in order for when his mission is accomplished, in order for him not to sustain damages, and in order for him to be able to accomplish the mission of his transforming, there are some returning points which he has kept for himself. So this is the differences between these two, masquerading and transforming. It is important you take note of them. So in the masquerading, Satan, in the days of the era of substance, when Satan has not been prevented from having access to the dwelling place of God or heaven, he invaded the garden, though by By findings, it was believed that the garden is on earth. Yes, because even in the book of Genesis, the Bible says God created heaven and earth. God asked that He will create man in His own image to replenish, to subdue, to have dominion over the earth. So the Garden of Eden was on earth, but it was a place that could be referred to as what the Bible later described in the book of Revelation, a new heaven and a new earth. That new heaven and a new earth, the former earth is passed away. The former earth then, which is the one present, the former earth which is passed away according to the book of Revelation, is the one that is functional now. This one that is functional now was not before. The earth that was before was free from the stain that has made this particular earth what it is today, and as a result of what it is going to be taken off. The sin is going to melt away with a fervent heat. No, the reason why this earth was going to melt away was not found in the earth which was in the era of substance, the earth which is part of eternity that man was created in. When man lose that eternity and now fall into error, that particular earth was taken out of man. Man had no access to it. The Bible recorded that a cherub was found that prevented man after man was driven from the Garden of Eden. A cherub was found that kept man from going back to the garden. That I think the sword was moving different direction, and it has kept man from going into the garden. Now, what am I trying to say? That earth which God placed man, which was supposed to mean this present earth, was without the works of the devil. But this earth now, courtesy of the masquerading work of Satan in the Garden of Eden, is now filled and infiltrated by the works of the devil. Look at the brutality that is found on this earth today. There was nothing like that in the Garden of Eden. In the Garden of Eden, man was not even given meats as food. It was trees, fruits, and the rest of them. In the Garden of Eden, there was no killing of animals. Lives were not killed. Everything was beautiful, and there was contentment. But when Satan deceived man, Satan now invaded the earth and took the earth away from the form by which of which God made it. But God secured the garden, a prototype of what He wants, just as eternity has been kept from Satan influence, but rather Satan is under the control of the God of eternity. He is the eternal. So man was removed from it, but was placed into error, various errors that has to do with the journey to eternity. But what am I trying to say? By virtue of what transpired, this present earth is contaminated. And look at the brutality. Man kills man. In some places in the world, humans eat their fellow humans. Look at the brutality in the animal kingdom, how animals waste other animals, and that there are animals that, as they wake up every day, other animals are bound to die, because that is how their digestive system are being configured. They are called carnivorous animals. They feed on meat and meat alone. And so you can imagine the way the earth has become. And look at the issue of terrorism, the issue of armed banditry, the issue of kidnapping, the issue of armed robbery, the issue of bloodshed, war, violence, and all sorts of ungodly acts that is taking place today on earth. So these things must be rolled away along with this present earth for the new heaven and the new earth to be, which of course they are all proceeds of the prototype of the Garden of Eden. Now, having had that said, we shall continue subsequently.